Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be how to make your woman feel heard and understood. I've got an email today. This is from a guy. I don't know how long he's been following me for, but he writes in asking if his fiance is a bad partner after they had a disagreement. So I went through his email, and as you guys may have heard me say, especially those that have read 3% Man, when a woman feels heard and understood, the legs open. And when she doesn't, the legs close. And so you're going to see an example of what not to do and why this creates problems. And usually, oftentimes, when I'm doing emails like this, it's the woman that's stonewalling the guy and being difficult, uncommunicative. And this guy is actually the one doing that. And so his fiance behaves in a way that a woman, when she doesn't feel heard and understood, feels. Now, granted, they're both not perfect here, but I mean, he's creating unnecessary drama and unnecessary problems here. Like, again, I don't know how many times he's read my book. I don't believe he says in his email. But this is such an important point. And when I'm doing phone sessions with guys that are in long-term relationships, it's two issues. And I've done tens of thousands of these over the last close to 20 years now that I've been doing this. They either don't make her feel, they don't know how to communicate properly, so she doesn't feel heard and understood. And the other thing that guys do in long-term relationships is they stop dating and courting their girlfriend or their wife. It's always one of those issues, or it's a combination of both of them. And this one is definitely a communication issue that, I mean, I read this, it's easy for me to see it, but he's in the middle of it, so it's kind of hard to see when you're in it and your emotions are attached. So let's go through his email. He says, "Hello, Corey. I just had a bad experience with my fiance, and I'd like to know your advice on the matter. She's a musician and asked me about a song of hers, and I gave her my honest opinion. One thing that's always important, and this comes right from the video I did years ago, how to communicate with women effectively, is before you start giving advice, ask, do you want me to listen, or do you want my opinion? Or do you want my advice? It's always good to ask that. And so he's giving his honest opinion. But we don't know if she was looking for his honest opinion or if she just wanted to talk and feel heard and understood. But I point that out because it's such a key issue, because 9 times out of 10 as a man, when you want to assume that she's looking for your opinion or your advice, that's when you get the, "You're not listening." He's like, "What are you talking about? I'm right here." So it's important to make the distinction. He says, "I told her I didn't think she should release it because the lyrical content is inappropriate for her audience. Then I went on to say that she should choose her audience and basically keep her music homogeneous and in message at least." And then he puts in parentheses, "Her music covers many genres." So as a creative person, and you're supposed to be her teammate, the purpose of all relationships is you go there to give. Love is about giving. Love is an act. It even says this in Scripture, in the Bible, for those of you that are Christian and know the Bible very well. Love is an act, just like your kids, especially when they're young. It's like you have to do everything for them. And so it's the love that you have for your children that continues to cause you to love them, even though they do things that make you want to jump out of your skin at times. But you do it because it's an act, because that's why you're in the relationship. And so the idea is you're there to help each other grow and become more. And the reality, as a creative person, because I make videos, I write books, I'm on my 4th book now. I got the 2nd book of Quotes is now coming out. It's available everywhere. This is the hardcover version of Quotes Volume 2. And what's interesting is that as a creative person, whether you paint or you make things, in my case, I do videos. In the emailer's case, or his fiance's case, she makes music. And the thing that's always been kind of fascinating to me is that a creative person, I mean, there's times that I'll do a video And it just doesn't, like, internally, it doesn't feel like things are flowing. I'm like, oh, that sucked. It was horrible. That was a terrible video. I should just delete it. And I feel that way. And I'm like, they're not going to like it. And I'm like, I'm on time crunch. It's like, I just stop, fuck it. I'm just going to release it. And then there'll be other times where I'll do a video and I'll feel like, man, that was amazing. I really felt like I was on. I just feel like it flowed through me. And what's interesting is oftentimes the one that I didn't enjoy, didn't like the best, or didn't feel it was my best work, people love that video. But other times when I'm like, man, that was awesome, they're going to really love it, and they're just kind of like, eh. And what's interesting is my engineer that I record all my audiobooks with, and obviously the latest here, he's done all 4 of them, he works with a lot of musicians, and he said the same thing. A lot of musicians, like, when you really look at the history behind their albums, the songs that, like, there would be songs that became like the #1 songs that the band had, some of their best hits, and yet they were songs that nobody in the band liked, they didn't like performing, and they didn't even want to put it on the album. But the people that were listening to it, they were engineering the album, were like, no, this is a good song, you need to leave this in. And so as a creative person, it's at the end of the day, whether you paint or you draw, you make music, you write, you run your mouth on video like I do, every day you get up, you got to do your best work. And what you did yesterday doesn't matter. It only matters what you do now. And if you're like this particular guy's in a relationship with a woman who's a creative person, and maybe he doesn't understand that, maybe he's not a creative person himself, but at the end of the day, you got something that's inside of you that you need to get out into the world. And you just need to release it and put it out there and see how the audience responds, good or bad. I say every time I do a video or I come up with a book or write an article or an Instagram post, I get instant feedback, good and bad. Get all kinds of hate, get lots of love as well. But at the end of the day, you put it out there, some people are going to love it, think it's amazing, other people are going to think it sucks ass. And you can't get attached to your praise, and you can't get attached to the people that have negative things to say about you. And so the point being is that if you're, like for the emailer, if you're in a relationship with a woman as a creative person, you want to encourage her to do that. And so the right way to phrase it, because it's not so much what you say, but how you say it. You could say, honestly, I'm not real crazy about that song, but hey, what do I know? Throw it against the wall and see what happens. Maybe your audience loves it, maybe they hate it. Either way, you're going to get feedback. I love you. I think you're amazing anyways. I think you should throw it against the wall. But he didn't do that in this case. He's telling her she needs to fit in a box, so to speak, and be a certain way. And so from her perspective, she's wanting to share her gifts, what's coming internally, and you're going, I mean, think about it, if that was one of your kids. Oh, I really think that song sucks. I mean, if you've ever watched documentaries on bands, there's a lot of people in bands, their parents thought they were nuts. Even like the Leonard Skinner was the recent one that I saw. It's like some of those guys, their parents weren't real supportive of what they were doing because they were spending so much time and they're getting older and their career's not taking off or anything. And they're like, same thing. I remember when I quit my job at Syntax Rooney to get in the buy, fix, and sell business, started a real estate company. My dad wasn't supportive of that. He didn't think it was a good decision. My father-in-law was like, that's kind of risky. So my inner circle, people weren't going, oh, I think it's great, go for it. They were like, And what you need more than anything when you're doing creative endeavors or you're starting a business is you need the people in your inner circle, your teammates, to be supportive and encourage you to do that. But not to get too wrapped up in your praise, but also not get too demoralized or have your feelings hurt by people that talk shit about you. The idea is if you're a creative person, no matter what you do for a living, you put your best work out there and let the chips fall where they may and try to get better each and every day. That's it. Just try to get a little bit better. So back to our email. He says, this was very upsetting for her and it became increasingly difficult to continue the conversation with her as it turned more and more into an argument and a debate. So she's asking, what do you think? She's really looking for encouragement because probably she had some doubts. She probably had some doubts about the song as well. And you basically said, I don't think it's a good idea. You shouldn't do that. probably, if you'd asked the question, do you just want me to listen, or do you want my opinion or my advice? She probably just wanted to talk as a sounding board. But you don't know because you didn't ask those questions. And it didn't say in your email either. I just look at the reaction, and her reaction is not a good one. She doesn't feel heard and understood, and she's upset. And you'll see why in a second as we get a little further in the email. You go, okay, makes sense. He says, I tried to end the conversation, but she continued to talk about it. And I finally left the room to go to sleep. And she then followed me into the bedroom and continued the conversation. Does that feel like a woman who's heard and understood to you? Or does that feel like a guy going, this is over. I'm leaving. I'm no longer going to communicate with you because you're not worth it. You're not worth my time to communicate. I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed. Couples that stay together, they don't do this fucking shit. When you look at studies of couples that have been together for many decades, when there's a problem, they'll stay up all night and talk it out. And this guy's going, I'm going to bed. Fuck this. He says, I told her how I understand how she feels. Yeah, that's a platitude. That's bullshit. I understand how you feel, but I'm going to bed. Like, man. She didn't feel heard and understood, dude. That's why she wanted to continue talking. He says, and I was only trying to give her advice to help her. But was she looking for advice, or was she just wanting you to listen? You don't know because you didn't ask. He says, then I told her I was ready for bed and I didn't want to talk about it anymore. You just cut off the conversation. Couples that are going to last and work out, they don't cut each other off. They stay up all night if they have to. I said I love you and good night and began to read my affirmations. Elvis had left the building, obviously. That's going to piss her off, man. Because what you did was you made her feel like she wasn't important enough for your time. And you made it feel like you really didn't care and you didn't really want to understand where she's coming from. And just to say, I understand how she feels, it's like, no, you don't. That's why she wanted to continue talking. When a woman feels heard and understood, she's like, I'm so glad we talked. I feel so much better. You're the best boyfriend. You're the best fiance ever. That's what you're going to get. Not happening here. She then got very triggered and said she was not sleeping next to me as she grabbed her pillow and blanket to head to the other room, something she's done many times. In other words, something you've done many times, making her not feel heard and understood. When a woman feels heard and understood, the legs open. When she doesn't, the legs close. So the legs were closed. She went to the other bedroom. She also got nasty with me, saying, I will never accomplish things on my list, and swiped my hand away when I tried to turn off the light. She's gotten nasty with me in the past, but never this severely. She doesn't feel heard and understood. I'm not saying that swiping your hand away is a good thing to do, but the point being is she's getting angrier and angrier. What's behind anger? Always is fear. Fear of what? Our two primary fears: fear that we're not enough. In other words, we don't have what it takes. I mean, a creative person, musician, feeling like she doesn't have what it takes. Or fear that we won't be loved and accepted. So she obviously didn't feel loved and accepted. So of course she's going to be fearful. She's doubtful, doubting herself, came to you for reassurance. You made her feel worse. And then on top of that, you communicated she wasn't worth your time. Wasn't worth. You were tired. You're going to bed. You don't have time to stay up and listen to her. So she went and slept in the other room because she feels the distance is growing between you two. And so that's why she got even angrier. She's afraid that her music's not good enough. And she's afraid that her fiancé doesn't care about her enough. That's why she left. Good, bad, and different. I'm just bottom lining the actions here. He says, we've been together for less than 2 years. She says that I am offering problems and not solutions. Do you think I should have handled this differently? Yeah, you should have done what the book says and how to communicate with women effectively. Or is my fiancé just creating unnecessary drama? Well, the fact that you didn't make the attempt, or you didn't make the proper attempt, you didn't follow what was in the book, you certainly were not doing what I teach about making her feel understood. So the fact that you probably haven't read the book 10 to 15 times, you're the man, you're the leader, you're the head of the household. It's up to you, dude. You're supposed to be the leader. A leader leads from the front, not the rear. Crying about it and say, oh, my fiance's a whack job. That's trying to absolve yourself from any not that he said that, but you're acting like, and even the intent was, is my fiance a bad partner? Remember, no one will ever do or say to you that isn't a direct reflection of how they feel about themselves in a moment. So on some level, he's probably realizing he wasn't being a good partner. Because women don't react this way when they feel heard and understood. They're all over you like a sucker fish. Is my fiance ultimately a bad partner? It's possible, but based on this one example you've sent me, you're not making her feel heard and understood. And that's your fault as a man, because you're the one stonewalling her. You're the one saying, I don't want to talk about it and I want to go to sleep. I love you. I understand how you feel. It's like, that's a fucking platitude. So, your words and your actions, I mean, she knows you're not congruent with it. That's why she's upset and she slept in another room. Like I said, I would have handled it completely differently, but you got to understand she's a creative person. She needs love and encouragement. And yeah, you can give her brutal honesty, but you encourage her to throw it out there and see what happens. You said yourself that her music covers many genres. So what would be wrong with her lyrics being inappropriate if she covers many genres? At the end of the day, she's a creative person. She makes music. So encourage her to make the best music that she can make and throw it out there, make a YouTube video about it, perform it in front of her audience, and she'll get instant feedback, good and bad. And that's what you want her to do. The goal is to always try to get better each and every day, get a little bit better. That's it. And that's what she needed. And so she came to her rock and her mountain for encouragement. Can you imagine if this was a little girl, this was your 10-year-old daughter, and she's learning to play the guitar, and you're like, oh, that sucks. Ain't nobody going to like that. You don't want to perform that. And then she starts crying and goes to her room. As a man, you don't feel very manly when you make a 5, 6, 10-year-old daughter cry. It's the worst fucking feeling in the world, and I speak from personal experience. Knowing that you made your little baby girl cry, it's horrible. It makes you feel awful. And so if you think about that, you in essence did the same thing. As an adult, you made your queen feel like she sucked. And on top of that she wasn't worth your time to work things out. So it's just a bad way to go, my man. If I were you, I would watch the video, How to Communicate with Women Effectively, a couple times, and then sit down and talk to her and apologize. Say, you know what? I thought about the other night. It was wrong for me to go to bed. I recognize I did not make you feel heard and understood. Probably hurt your feelings about your music. And we should definitely talk more about this. And I'm really sorry I hurt you that way. And I'm supposed to be your biggest teammate and fan and cheerleader and encourage you to get your musical gift out into the world. And when people love it, great, I'll celebrate with you. When people say it sucks or whatever, they don't like it, I'll console you. But the idea is to get better. Take the friction, use it to get better. Because if she feels safe and comfortable to blossom in your home, she'll be happier, she'll feel more love, she'll have more light in her heart, and she'll produce better music. Because at the end of the day, when you're feeling really good, you make great music. But also on the flip side, when you think about some of the best songs out there that have done really well, what are they about? Heartbreak usually. And so intense emotions are what make great music. That's the important thing to understand. So encouraging your fiance to experience positive, intense emotions, hopefully, she'll make better quality music versus she feels like shit. But it's also possible she goes and makes a song about how her fiance doesn't support what she does and pours the pain into it. And it could be a good song. The point being is that I would have handled it differently, obviously. So if you got a question or a challenge and you'd like to get my help, go to understandingrelationships.com, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and book a coaching session with yours truly. Until next time, I will talk to you soon.